The eighth passage is from Isaiah 7. Behold, a virgin pregnant and giving birth to a son, and you, mother, shall call his name Emmanuel. He shall eat butter and honey, so that he may know how to reject evil and choose good. For before the child knows how to reject evil and choose good, the land which you detest will be relieved by the presence of its two kings, Rezin and Pekah. According to history, a sign was given to the frightened king of Judah, Ahaz, so that he might understand that two of his enemies, Rezin and Pekah, would soon be destroyed, and the kingdom of Judah freed from them. At that time, Ahaz was greatly afraid of those two kings, because he had already suffered much from them, 2 Chronicles 28, which Isaiah had earlier prophesied, chapters 3 and 4. And later, he was even more afraid when, with the entire kingdom of Judah already nearly destroyed, he saw them approaching the city of Jerusalem. And it was then that this sign was given to him, suited to the age, and also containing the mystery of Christ. When read in literal terms, Isaiah is pointing to Abijah, daughter of Zechariah, then the wife of King Ahaz, whom he also calls a prophetess because she had foretold that a divine name was to be assigned to her son. Mothers are wont to adorn their sons with imposing names, which is why Isaiah directed his words, "You shall call his name Emmanuel," to the mother. Thus, while the son was rightly called Hezekiah, that is, the strength of God, Isaiah says that his mother rightly called him Emmanuel, God with us. Hezekiah was called Emmanuel, just as Solomon is called Lemuel, belonging to God, in Proverbs 31, because God was then amongst them. Solomon's mother calls him Lemuel, just as Hezekiah's mother calls her son Emmanuel. This Abijah, as a young virgin girl, conceived Hezekiah as if by a great miracle. According to the book of Kings, Ahaz was at most 11 years old when he fathered Hezekiah. The prophetess accordingly gave a divine name to her son as if he had been conceived in the womb of a virgin, as a type of Jesus Christ. By a kind of hyperbole and figurative use of speech, he can be said to have been begotten in a virgin, especially since the Hebrew word alma, often rendered virgin, means a young woman. Or she may have been called a virgin because of her extreme youth. Unlike Mary, the mother of Jesus, Abijah did not conceive without the seed of a man. Nevertheless, Isaiah teaches that a kind of miracle was prefigured in the begetting of Hezekiah, who is therefore called the strength of God and God with us, who in Hezekiah's time, God with great strength was with the people against all their enemies, especially the Assyrians. By this miraculous sign, Isaiah points to the greater miracle of the true Virgin Mary. What history teaches us should not be neglected, although the whole truth is not contained in it. Hence, in Isaiah chapter 9, it is appropriately written about this same Hezekiah, "Every battle of the warrior involves a clash and clothing stained with blood, but that battle will be miraculously waged with fire and a devouring flame cast upon the Assyrians by an angel." In the same way, Christ, by means of a fiery sword, destroys his enemies and the Antichrist himself in the figure of the Assyrian. Isaiah 11. As in the resurrection of Christ on the third day, so too on the third day the prayers of Hezekiah brought about the miraculous liberation of his people. And on the third day Hezekiah, as if rising from the dead, went up to the house of the Lord. Hosea 6 and 2 Kings 20. He was there acting as the truest type of Jesus Christ. In short, everything Isaiah says about Christ from the beginning to chapter 40 has its type in the story of Hezekiah. In chapter 40, he begins to speak of Cyrus, who also, as the type of Jesus Christ, was a liberator from captivity. For this reason, Cyrus was also called Christ, the Anointed One, just as Hezekiah and Solomon were respectively called Emmanuel and Lemuel. But turn your attention now to how artfully, in the aforementioned chapter 7, Isaiah says, Hara Weyoledet, pregnant and giving birth, or conceiving and giving birth, so that the words extend into the past and the future like a double-edged sword. For Hezekiah was already born at the time of the defeat of Rezin and Pekah, as Isaiah relates in the following chapter, repeating precisely the same words. "I went," he says, "to the prophetess who conceived and gave birth to a son, in whose childhood the plundering of Damascus and Samaria occurred." But why did Isaiah say he shall eat butter and honey in order to know how to reject evil and choose good? The prophet relates in the same passage that despite their lack of cattle and the destruction of their beehives, they will eat butter and honey. After the terrible devastation brought by their enemies, God soon gave such abundance that even the children eating butter and honey were able to see the goodness of God and to learn to choose good and reject evil. This is what Hezekiah, then a small child, came to know. Butter and honey indeed is children's food, which is why Isaiah uses these words when talking about the child. But Isaiah is also showing the return of Judah's fruitfulness, for which, as it was given so quickly, God was greatly to be praised. King Ahaz was blind to this, not thinking of the great benefits God had showered on them, which caused butter and honey to so greatly abound after the destruction of their flocks and beehives by the enemy. He chose evil and rejected good. A similar prophecy of future prosperity appears in Isaiah 37. The prophet adds another portent, for before the child knows how to reject evil and choose good, the land which you, Ahaz, detest will be abandoned by those two kings, Rezin and Pekah. For both were killed before this child Hezekiah reached an age adult enough to know the difference between good and evil. This prophecy came to pass a little later, 2 Kings 15 and 16. Therefore Ahaz, accept this sign that God will preserve the kingdom for your son. Behold, a girl, a young woman, miraculously conceiving and giving birth to a son, whom you, mother, justly call Emmanuel, through whom God will perform miracles among the people, and who will save the people, and who, even as a child, because of the fertility that God will give so quickly, will come to know the right path of God and will reject evil. And there is one more thing, writes Isaiah, before the child reaches that age, those two kings whom you dread will be destroyed. Thus all these things are fulfilled to the letter, and just as they are set forth, we must not neglect the meanings that ancient history provides, through which the mysteries of Christ are splendidly illuminated, for it was Christ alone who was actually conceived and born by a virgin. He alone is the true Hezekiah, the true Emmanuel, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace.